you? I'm Cassidy Quinn, and welcome back to Mentally Together. Because whether you can see it on the surface or not, we are all trying to keep ourselves mentally together. And whatever our brains are experiencing, we're not alone, we're together. Do you ever feel like you're not enough? Like, no matter how hard you work, how much you work out, how many books you read, you're still missing something to be worthy of what you want? No, don't worry. I've not turned the show into an infomercial in only the second episode. But these are all definitely feelings that I have had a lot. And I'm realizing that those feelings are not rare at all. So if you don't feel them, congratulations, and please teach me your ways. But also, more importantly, if you do struggle with feeling like you're not enough, you are unfortunately not alone. 2020 was weird and sucky for everyone in different ways. And at least for me, it really made me think about what being enough actually means. Like before COVID, I was thinking more about being pretty enough, or being productive enough, creating enough, putting enough out there on social media. And then bam, quarantine happens, and next thing you know, I'm at home wearing leggings and no makeup and definitely not doing my hair and really not even looking in the mirror as much. And I definitely wasn't putting as much content out there into the world as I was before because I just didn't have the motivation. So instead, I kind of had to come up with new enoughs. Like, am I getting outside enough? Am I taking enough breaks? Am I checking in with my family and friends enough? Checking in with my own brain enough? Calling my grandma enough? Which turns out, those are the enoughs that actually matter. Like, in 20 years, I won't care if my family and friends thought I was pretty or I posted the best things on Instagram. I'd rather have them say that I was kind and caring and made them smile when they were having a bad day, you know? Oh man, this sounds so cheesy, but you know it's true, right? And honestly, I'm not saying these things right here, recording them forever onto the podcast because I have now figured it all out and I always think this way, but instead so that I myself will listen to this again sometime in the future and be reminded of these enoughs. Maybe on a day that I'm not feeling like I'm enough. And instead of forcing myself to post on social media to get some superficial validation, a bunch of likes, or binge watching The Bachelorette or something, instead I will go on a walk and call my mom. And that will help so much more. I am so excited to introduce you to my next guest. Well, it might not even be an introduction because you might know her already. It's Shoshana Bean. Shoshana Bean is an actress, singer, just an incredible performer. You may have seen her as Elphaba in the musical Wicked on Broadway, which is how I first heard of her. And yes, as a musical theater kid in high school, I was instantly obsessed with her. And so yes, also the fact that I get to have her on my podcast kind of blows my mind. Okay, what else? Most recently, she played Jenna in Waitress on Broadway, and when she's not performing on Broadway, she's working on her solo career, where she has sold out concerts around the world. Yeah, she's talented, she's creative, she's gorgeous, and she's just a lovely human. But as we all know on this podcast, just because everything seems perfect on the outside doesn't mean that person doesn't have mental struggles they deal with every single day. So, Shoshana and I talk about living in the uncomfortable, the importance of letting your emotions out, how to retrain your brain to tell yourself positive things instead of negative things, and why it is so freaking hard to know that we are enough in this world. So, now let's get into this episode with the amazing Shoshana Bean. Shoshana, hello.
Hi.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm always excited to talk to you, but I'm especially excited this time because any other time that I've talked to you, it's either on live television for like 4 minutes, which is way too short, or we'll talk for like 45 minutes and then I have to cut it down to 3 minutes for television. But this time we could talk for hours. No, I won't make you talk that long, but I'm excited to just get to chat with you. So thank you.
Likewise, thank you.
I guess I've only interviewed you in person one time. Every other time we we knew what was happening, I guess, because we were just talking and doing interviews like on FaceTime and
Yeah,
Zoom.
we were ahead of our time.
But you have done for the last few years, you have either come, or this year you did it virtually, remotely, obviously, to your alma mater, Beaverton High School, and done a whole fundraising show with the students, which is amazing. Have you always like wanted to give back to, I guess, teenagers specifically? Is it kind of like giving back to your younger self when you do that?
I guess I never thought about it in that way. But I have over time found myself drawn to that particular age group because I think it is incredibly hard to be a teenager. I think it's incredibly emotional with not a lot of opportunity or outlets where you're encouraged to express those feelings. I also, obviously, because I am the daughter of a Beaverton arts educator, I have watched from the sidelines as the budgets have just been systematically decimated. And it's devastating to watch, the abundance of funds and support that the arts programs used to get when we first moved to Portland and my mom first started teaching at Jefferson High School. And then where the fights that she would continually have in her final years over teaching in Beaverton at ACMA, from how they take care of their teachers to their classrooms to their recitals. I mean, just anything. So I find the arts to be imperative. When I look back and sort of retrace my own steps, I feel that the arts saved my life. Before I even knew that my life was up for, was like up for debate. I don't know who I would be without them. And I know that had I not had that outlet, I just don't know, what I would have done. And I watch and teach these younger kids and just watch them reaching that age and that point of mastering the art of hiding their feelings, of stuffing them, of controlling them. And I also watch them find their own power and their confidence and find beauty in this sort of turmoil of emotions by performing and by having the community and the camaraderie and connection of fellow artists. And that's a really long answer, but yeah, I guess in some way it would be like just giving back in gratitude for who I am and what I have because of the arts. And also knowing that the arts have the potential to save these little lives.
That was a really great long answer. And it's so like you talk about stuffing down your emotions. Do you feel like did you used to do that before? Did you have to learn
I feel like
performing?
Of really emotional and also like really guarded, especially in situations where I was uncomfortable or scared. I would find that I would lead with what people probably interpreted as having an attitude, being above it all, tough, when really I was just protecting like massive amounts of fear and insecurity. And that all kind of really got broken down in college when I was, in school for musical theater. There's just, and I find myself doing the same chipping away at students that I teach. It's like, you cannot be an effective performer and be hiding parts of yourself. It doesn't work. It's completely counterintuitive. So a lot of my job is empowering these kids to be comfortable sharing their hearts when they've spent the majority, if life has done its job, they've spent the majority of their lives mastering the art of don't cry, it shows weakness. Don't yell at people, you can't be angry. Don't speak up, girls shouldn't have an opinion. Whatever the things are, like we've heard enough and experienced enough to know like, ooh, when I express my feelings in any type of way that's unacceptable, I get criticized or made fun of or in trouble. So I think the arts have always been a way for very therapeutic for me.
So are you good at that now? Like, do you still ever hear the voice in your head of like, girls can't yell, don't get too mad, or have you mastered that?
Yeah. I mean, have I mastered the art of being fearless? No, I have fear every day in the moves that I make and the asks that I make and the steps that I take in business and art. Right. But I think what I've learned is like, yeah, you feel the fear and you do it anyway. Have I become wildly emotionally intelligent and able to like boil down whatever my reactions are to things to the essential kernel that is the truth of it, which is usually, when you boil all of it away, is usually fear of rejection, which means I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. Something's wrong with me. I'm broken. I'm not enough. So I understand things in a way now that allows me to be incredibly vulnerable, to always lead with my heart and share it and connect with people and know that I'm safe no matter what my feelings are, and knowing that my feelings generally are a function of feeling scared to not be good enough, right? But no, I'm afraid every day in the moves I make, and I try to stay in a place of being afraid, because then I know I'm outside my comfort zone,
And that's where you try to stay, is a little
outside,
outside your comfort zone.
because then I know I'm doing something new. If I'm comfortable, it's generally probably familiar, which means I've done it before. So I'm always trying to expand my my false illusions and perceived limits of like what's possible and what I'm really afraid of, right?
Right. Well, then 2020 must have been great for you, because, we're all in the uncomfortable all year. Just
Yeah.
stay there.
Yeah. And that's, you would think that the discomfort comes from like moving fast or doing new things that are like, in achieving things and like working with different people and working hard. For me, the bigger discomfort is having to sit still with myself. So yes, this year has been incredibly challenging and uncomfortable.
I kind of feel the same way. And it does seem counterintuitive, because this year is the most time that I've spent like by myself. I mean, my boyfriend is in my apartment 90% of the time, but even then, like, he's doing his own thing. You're in quarantine. You can't just literally talk to each other the entire time, as much as I might try to force him to. But it's like the most time I've spent inside my brain and just hearing every thought in my brain and going, oh, there's time to listen to that. Like, that's a thought that it's probably been there, but I haven't just checked in and gone, oh yeah, let's think about that. Let's sit on that.
I totally agree and relate with what you just said, which is just like we run so hard and so fast all the time, that we don't hear, whether it's like interesting inspiration to do things that we either A, wouldn't have the time or space to hear from ourselves, or B, would just immediately disregard and justify as like not worth our time, don't have the space for it, that's stupid, they're going to say no anyway. Where's that going to lead? That's not going to transactionally, like, that's not going to get me where I want to go. And so right now, because there's nowhere to freaking get or go, probably that's why you've started this,
Yep.
because it's more like, what do I just want to contribute? Like, what do I want to be doing with my time if I'm not necessarily doing it to get paid or get ahead or win award? Like, we're just in a very weird, like, kind of pause. It's like, what do I actually want to be doing? And gratefully for me, it's just, I still want to do what I do, whether you pay me or not, whether, I'm on stage with you live in front of me or not, I still want to do what I do. But I think what I've learned or sort of had to wrestle with and come to terms with is like, look, you weren't here to win awards. You weren't here necessarily to be a billionaire. You aren't here to, have all these things that you think outwardly coming from the outside define success. So if all those things are taken away, which at certain chunks of this year, it felt like, everything we thought we knew, it's gone. Like, we're never going to fly. I'm never going to fly on a plane again. Right. So if all of that is removed, like, it stripped away all the smoke and mirrors, essentially. So I think what I've learned is like, there is still power. Not that I didn't know this, but like,
right.
Just a strong reminder of like the power in simplicity, the power in just the bare bones of the craft. You don't need the massive sets and the costumes and the lights and the makeup and the hair. And as you can see, I got very glamorous for you today.
You always look beautiful.
Bless you. Just like really stripping it down to the barest essentials, and again, continuing to move forward despite what my initial reaction may be of like, well, we can't do that because we're all stuck at home.
Yep.
Well, there's a lot of things we've all discovered are possible within these sort of like parameters and circumstances. So I've allowed myself to be where I'm at each day. And some days that means not leaving the couch. And some days that means like going from 6 a.m. to midnight. Like, I don't know. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is just really realizing how hard and fast we run for what?
Yep.
For what?
Right. Like, I realized at the beginning of quarantine, like, I am so burnt out that this feels like a nice break. Like, the fact that all of a sudden my TV show that I was doing was on hiatus. Now it's forever. It's over, obviously. But instead of being really sad about it, which I was for a day, then after a couple days, I was like, wait a minute, this is a nice break. Like, I don't have to run to the studio, get 100 things done, put 20 minutes on the air every single day. Like, this is a nice break. And that's when I realized, oh, okay.
Right.
Maybe that's not my number one priority. Maybe the priorities are some other things that I need to figure out. So definitely puts things in perspective.
Yeah, like a reanalyzing, a reassessing of how life is going. And do I want to continue this way? And a lot of things, it's like, yes, I can't wait till I want to get back to what I do. But the other thing is just like, obviously, I think the biggest lesson for all of us was like, we build our lives so that we have some kind of certainty. And if this year taught us anything, it's like, you're not in control. You're not driving this ship. Like, you can build the security all around you, but like, just kind of leveled us all, So anyway, yeah.
Totally. And I think also for me, it's like when you don't see people in person, if no one's really seeing you face to face, they're only seeing you on the internet, which is bad in many ways, but also you can then go, okay, what do I want to say? Like, what do I want to use my voice for if this is the only place people are seeing me, which you have done a really good job of. You've done like Pass the Mic with Black performers in your industry. And even when you had to multiple times postpone the virtual Beaverton High School fundraiser show this time, like you postponed it again because the protests started, George Floyd was murdered, and you kind of use that to share your voice and your platform too. So how have you made that a priority?
I think if anything, like, with all the negative sides of social media, I think one of the positive ones is how much and how quickly we're able to teach each other things. Everyone has a platform, and depending on where you choose to put your attention and your energy, you can learn a lot in a short amount of time. And I think that has forced us to all stop and really pay attention to what we're saying and when we're saying it and how we're saying it and to whom we are speaking and what we stand for, and to just kind of like not be tone deaf, And I felt like, I felt twofold. I felt like we could let this concert go forward and provide people light and love and music and escape, or we could just step back and not make this about anything other than what it needs to be about right now. What I love about what we do is it provides escape, but I just feel like there's been a lot of moments this year where, guess what? I don't want people to escape. I want people to have to sit in the discomfort and look at what's happening and I don't want to give them something shiny to look at over here, So it was a conversation, but then ultimately after conversation, a no-brainer for me. These are my friends and my family, people that I consider family, being gunned down in the street. And, that is a pandemic. That is a civil war. That is like, it's massive. So, and I knew because we were doing it virtually, like we were losing nothing by just pressing pause. So yeah, I think again, with social media, we have an opportunity to use our platform, no matter how small or how large, to educate and spread information. I think we all have to be really diligent and careful about what we're spreading, because I've been real quick to hit repost on things, and then someone will be like, that's actually not true. And I'm like, oh, I didn't take the time to do the research. I just assumed if someone was posting it, it must be true,
Yeah,
so,
I trusted that person, so obviously it must be true. And they trusted that person that they retweeted, and they retweeted them. And yeah, it's like playing telephone.
I've been called numerous times for false information, but and so I take it down, and we just, it's kind of the Wild West. But and it can be maddening and really freaking emotionally and mentally unhealthy. But like, I also think there are really important things that it does. So I try to stay engaged, and I try to stay active in the conversation and respectful of who has the mic, and whose perspective is the most important to be heard at the time. So it's a delicate dance, I would say.
Do you spend a lot of time on social media? Like, are there times when you just have to tell yourself to put your phone away and you're not going to look, or are you pretty good at that?
Some days, depending on what it is that's triggering me, I will have to sign out of Instagram. Instagram's my poison that I choose. I'm not really on Facebook. I'm not really on Twitter. So Instagram is the danger
I
for
can't
me.
get off Twitter. I can't do it. I need
Oh,
to. I need,
everyone has
yeah.
did you watch Social Dilemma? Did you watch Social Dilemma?
I did watch Social Dilemma and it was terrifying. And
Yeah.
now
Oh,
I don't know what to do with my life. Like I live on the internet. I don't know. But I think we can use it for good. Like you were saying,
yeah.
there are still benefits to it. We just have to control what we're posting. Think about it a
Yeah.
little extra before you share things. Yeah, it's a dilemma for sure.
It is a dilemma, but also like now I thought about it twofold. I just thought it was interesting because you were like Twitter's mine because they asked those guys
Uh-huh.
like, what's your one? And they're like, Reddit, can't get off. Like, everyone has their thing. So mine's Instagram,
Yep.
but they also, were saying like, get off social media. And I was like, and I thought about it because I'm like, I don't really use Facebook. I wouldn't lose anything by deleting that. I don't really use Twitter. I wouldn't lose anything by deleting that. And then I was like, this is not the moment to be deleting social media. This is the moment to get engaged in the conversation. Like, this isn't the moment. So that said, I do take breaks. They're not long, but it's usually from Instagram. I just sign out.
Wow.
But I also have just, find that if I'm busier, I pick it up less often. It's kind of a mindless thing, but I do find great information on there. So it's usually just when I'm not able to hold it lightly and I'm starting to make meaning of things and get sucked in that I know that I need a break.
Yeah, I would like to think that everyone that follows you would just only say nice things, but there's always some jerks on the internet. Do you?
I'm very lucky. I don't get a lot of crap, but every once in a while. Every once in a while. But what I realized with Social Dilemma is they're really just trying to get me to spend money. And I'm your number one sucker who spends money on Instagram. So
Instagram has gotten, way too good at the ads. They know me. They're probably listening right now.
Yeah.
And I want to buy everything they tell me. Yeah.
I know. So I've just stopped purchasing through like the click through. Do you know what I'm saying? Just so they don't. So I've tried to like beat the algorithm. But anyway.
Yes. We can do it.
I credit social media with like the reason I'm able to have a solo career, and that I'm able to promote and sell tickets and reach people. So I embrace it. And I also know that I have to be, mindful.
How do you deal if someone does leave a mean comment? Do you, obviously you're everyone says, don't read the comments, don't take it personally. Sometimes it's easier said than done, I would say.
Oh, totally. I mean, there were some interesting interactions at the beginning of the protests and stuff in June. And I don't know. I really try to pick my battles carefully. I really do. I really try to ignore most of it. I have absolutely engaged and either it doesn't go well because you have to keep defending your position or, I end up, I have a very strong way with words. So sometimes people will say something or post something and I'll clap back and then they'll be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm such a big fan. Like I didn't mean it like that. And then I feel badly that I even engaged. Like, it's rarely works out well when you engage with any kind of negativity or opposing viewpoint. However, I can think of one instance at the beginning that I kind of went back and forth with some people on a post. And I decided to leave it up there because it was a conversation around what was happening right now. And I just thought like, we have to be able, this is what social media has done. It's made us so divisive that we can't even have conversations with each other anymore. It's just a screaming match and a you're wrong and I'm right. And there's no like listening to the other side. So I was like, this isn't actually like transparent conversation. I'm just going to leave this up here and people can draw their opinions, what they, how they will, but like, it's important to see two people with opposing viewpoints, like have a conversation. So I don't know, man, it's weird, but it's also that thing where I'm sure you can relate. We're so sick in our heads that like you can have 100 loving, supportive, beautiful comments and one negative one, and you hang your hat and the rest of your day on the one negative one. So I'm just trying to like hold it all lightly, all of it, the good and the bad.
It is so true. There can be 100 nice comments and then one person says something mean and it's there. It just lives rent free in my brain. Gotta evict it. Gotta give it an eviction notice.
So human. It's so human.
Have you been putting off a visit to the doctor for way too long? Yeah, I do that too. And when I finally do call and make an appointment, the doctor's office usually tells me the next available appointment is months away. That's why I've started going to Zoom Care. With locations in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Colorado, Zoom Care offers same-day doctor visits that you can book online or from their app. Yep, you don't have to talk to anyone on the phone. They even offer mental health visits, where you can speak to a board-certified mental health provider in person or through video. Zoom Care is where I went last year for my ADHD diagnosis, and they made the process so simple. They really took away my stress. So if you're ready to make an appointment of your own, head to zoomcare.com. That's Zoomcare, ZOOMCARE.com. As you may or may not know, I am a self-proclaimed crazy plant lady. But as of just a couple years ago, I was convinced I would forever be a plant killer. That is until I met the Plant Doctors. They're two women, Chelsea and Skylar, in Portland, Oregon, who love helping people and businesses figure out how to care for their plants. And they sell cute plants and adorable plant pots too. They have brought lots of beauty into my home. They do house calls if you're here in Portland, or you can set up a virtual consultation to get their plant tips online. Do I still kill my plants sometimes? Yes, definitely. But the Plant Doctors are always there to help. Go get yourself a new plant. You deserve it. You can find them at theplantdocs.com. That's theplantdocs.com. And use the code Cassidy for 15% off your order. That's code Cassidy at theplantdocs.com.
Now, back to the show.
How is your voice inside your head? Like, I realized, like I was saying, spending a lot of times in my own brain, listening to my own brain this year, probably more than ever, I realized that there were a lot of negative thoughts in my brain that I had to rewire and go, like, if you're standing there looking in the mirror going like, oh my God, I can't do this. Oh, I don't look cute. I look tired. Those things just keep repeating themselves and they kind of snowball and get worse and worse. And so I had to literally just go, okay, when you think that, switch it. Just tell yourself something nice instead. And hopefully that will snowball. Like, how is the inside of your brain?
Oh, it's hard. It's a horrible place to be. Are you kidding?
Oh no.
But listen, I think that it's everyone's initial instinct. And again, over time, over life, over all the paper cuts, everyone's initial instinct is to tear themselves down, to make, to find what's wrong, to look at the negative, to see it as bad or wrong or not good enough. And so, yes, I think it is a full-time job pivoting those thoughts to something more positive. But I have found just in the past couple months, this amazing tool where, like, instead of trying to leap from A to Z, you take the more limiting belief of like, oh, I'm fat, I look terrible. And you find evidence to disprove it. Almost like we sit down in the court. I'm like, we're going to court. Now you have to defend the opposite point of view. Now you have to find evidence for why you're actually feasibly the truth of why you're not fat, or why you actually don't look tired, or whatever the thing is, or why find proof for why, someone is actually going to care or say yes or whatever. Like, I just force myself to disprove the limiting opinion or belief. And then it gets you to Z in a more like cognitive way and in a more believable way, as opposed to trying to jump from I look fat to I'm Cindy Crawford. Do you know what I mean? It's a big leap. So it takes time, but just like you said, it's like just attention to what script the thoughts are running, man. It's really important.
Well, because a lot of times in other years, at least for me, and probably I would think similar for you, because we're in front of people and talking to people so much, like a lot of that validation does come externally, of people coming up to you and being like, you're so good at your job. Oh my gosh, this is fun. I love talking to you, blah, blah, blah. Now all of a sudden you're inside just by yourself. Like, oh, how am I validating myself? Which is really number one, most important, and seems so basic, but it wasn't something that I'm still not very good at that.
You know what's funny is though that outside validation, I don't know if you feel the same, but for me, it never really matters. It
No.
matters like candy matters. Like candy matters in the moment. It tastes good in the moment. You may get a little sugar rush in the moment, but it's what my father would call empty calories. It's not nutritionally sustaining. It's not actually, so it's the same with, I feel like outside validation. It feels so good in the moment. You get a little rush from it, but then you
Yep.
go home without that constantly in your ear and you're like, I'm a piece of shit, So I think that it's just become more apparent in this time that like it doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks. If you don't think you're worth anything, this is why, and I have friends who, have multi-million-dollar homes and Grammy awards and are drug addicts or constantly cheating on their partner or do crazy things because that outside validation is not filling whatever hole and a belief that they're like worthless inside. Doesn't matter how many awards or hit songs or whatever.
Yep. It's just like a patch over the top that then doesn't really get stuck down very well, and then it's gone. You're like, oh, the hole's still there. Cool.
Correct.
Well,
Band-aid on a broken leg. Yeah.
So you have had to gotten to transform yourself into many different characters, whether you're literally transforming into Elphaba and being green, or Waitress, which mostly, looks like you. Obviously, get to be beautiful. Do you learn things about yourself or about life like through the different characters that you play?
Always, always, always. Yeah, I'd say more so in the past like 10 years, like with CeCe Bloom, with Fanny Bryce, with Jenna and Waitress, those characters, because I think I was more available emotionally. Elphaba, I think I was pretty well guarded still at that time in my life. So while I definitely brought myself to the role, I don't know how much I allowed her to teach me, if that makes sense. Aside from like life lessons, like, playing Elphaba made me learn how to take care of my body or like how to have grew my stamina and my endurance and taught me how to do 8 grueling shows a week where you're singing a score like that and how to like, save and maneuver. So obviously playing the role taught me a lot. And it taught me a lot about like, again, you think that getting the thing you've dreamed of your whole life is going to fix something, and it doesn't fix anything. It actually just brings more challenges to the table, right? So, seeing behind the curtain and seeing like how challenging it really is to be a star on Broadway. It is hard. So she taught me those kinds of things. That role taught me those kinds of things. But like, yeah, I find not just for myself, but for a lot of us in this business, we are brought to certain roles at like just the perfect time in our lives where we're kind of, I've had experiences with characters where I'm like, I don't know where she's ending and I'm beginning, like our lives are mirroring each other. We handle, especially with CeCe Bloom and Fanny Bryce, I'm like, we just handle life so similarly. I don't know who's who anymore. And then with Jenna, like she taught me a whole other level because I feel like I'm generally cast in roles where these women lead with strength and with power. They may have a concealed vulnerability, but they lead with a ferocity. And so, even being offered the role of Jenna was surprising to me because she's the complete opposite. She leads with sort of like a numb vulnerability, if that makes any sense. She's very small and she lives in fear kind of. And while these other characters definitely lived in fear as well, they sort of like protected it the way that Shoshana has always protected it, with like a tough exterior and power and I'll push you away before you can push me away and that kind of thing. Jenna is just sort of like, a victim of her own life and choices. So I think with her, I just was able to uncover and lead with my own vulnerability and realize that is powerful too. And that simplicity and stillness is enough. I think when you make your way, as I have in the industry, by being strong and singing loud and high and large and you're celebrated for that, you sometimes worry that if you don't do that thing, I might as well just speak as I have worried that if I don't do that thing, that I won't be appreciated, that people will be like, we only like it when she sings those high notes and does all those riffs. I don't know why she's singing simply. And what I've learned over the past couple of years is like there is still power in simplicity and especially that vulnerability. So
or I think too, like if people, yes, they have loved you for the performances you've done and singing those high notes and belting it out, but at the same time, like they love that because that was real and genuine for you. And so they love Shoshana doing what makes Shoshana happy. And so if that then becomes singing simply or whatever, like it makes sense, at least from an outsider's perspective, that they would love that too.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And it took me a little longer to get there, was just like whatever's authentic, whatever feels true for you is what resonates with other people. So it's not trying to be as calculated about what you think or project that people want or are going to enjoy. It's really just tuning that out, like staying in your own inspiration and your own whatever life is calling you to do and make, and knowing that like whoever needs to hear that, whoever aligns with that is going to be there.
Have you figured out things in your routine that work for you, like that set you up to have a better day than you may have? Like for me, I'm trying to get better at remembering to get up and meditate every morning because I know that makes my day better. But a lot of times in the morning I go, I'll do it later. And then I forget and my day is not better.
You're better than me. I'm terrible at meditating, but I do find that when I do, obviously my vibration changes. So it's just anything that shifts the vibration. Sometimes that's getting outside and going for a walk. Sometimes that's just jumping right into my workout. Sometimes that's, being lazy and sitting on the couch and watching, an episode of whatever I'm doing and having my coffee. Every day is different. I was in a big routine this summer. I did this 75 hard challenge.
Yes.
And yeah,
I saw your Instagram post about it. It's like, dang, I feel so lazy. Wow. She's here in her cute bathing suit and she's been working out and eating healthy.
It was a massive undertaking, but because of those non-negotiable tasks, it was like I woke up, I would read my 10 pages, I would get right into my first workout. So that routine, especially in a time when we had no routine, that routine was really cool for me because I'd never really built my life around non-negotiables. I have such a, loose schedule and every day is different. And some days I'm in this day, it's so inconsistent that I just allowed the rest of my life to be inconsistent because of that. And what I found with that challenge was like, you get to decide. You get to decide what's non-negotiable for you. And I realized like how I just had never set my life up in that way. So yeah, I haven't really maintained a lot of that stuff, but it was an interesting lesson for sure.
Are you good at actually getting enough sleep? I feel like that would be important for what you do.
Yeah.
But it's something I need to learn.
Yeah, it varies. Some nights I'll get 6 hours. Some nights I'll get 12. Like I do love sleep though. So I eventually do make time for it and catch up, but I also am willing to sacrifice it when stuff needs to get done. Again, I'm just erratic.
Yeah. You seem like a person similar to me that kind of enjoys being busy. And so you therefore are always busy. Is that the case?
Yeah, totally. But I don't know if I'll ever be good at being busy again because I've gotten so used to like having downtime now that I'm like, it's 4:00. I really put in a good couple of hours today. Like, I feel like the day's over. You know what I mean?
You probably got everything done that you actually needed to get done that day.
No, never. But I'm also like, we're not up against, who's counting? No one's going anywhere. Like, you know what I mean? If I didn't get it done today, it's there tomorrow. So I definitely feel like I've adopted a way more lax attitude where before I'd be like, I'm not going to bed till this list is done. And I'm like, whatever, it'll get it. And what's cool is it always gets done. Right. And I'm never late with it. It always gets done. But I didn't have to just like force myself to,
Like I know for me, I'm most creative when I'm not trying to force it. Like when I'm not like, okay, it's time to be creative right now. We have to like do something and make something and it's going to be amazing. Instead, it's like, when I'm just cleaning the house or sitting around doing nothing. And I'm like, oh, there's an idea.
Yeah, 1000%. Yeah.
What is the biggest lesson that you're still learning? Like for me, it probably is that sleep does actually matter. Like getting 8 hours of sleep consistently does make my life better, but I'll learn it and then I forget. Is there a big lesson that you're still working on learning?
Yeah, that you're enough. You're enough. You're worthy. You're enough. That's the daily challenge.
which is sad, but also amazing to hear from you, because I have always looked it's like, oh my gosh, it's the amazing Shoshana Bean, but maybe Shoshana doesn't think that of herself when she looks in the mirror. Is that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not necessarily, yes, plenty of times when I look in the mirror, I'm like, oh, Jesus. But it's more just like as you continue to grow and, accomplish or learn or whatever, like the bar just keeps raising. And so then, of course, you're again I'm in a realm now where a younger version of me would never have felt worthy of being where she is now, right? But I'm also in a place now where I don't necessarily yet feel worthy of the things that I know I want to call in or achieve or whatever do. So, I think it's a constantly sliding scale and the bar is constantly moving. And that's the very common challenge of being an artist is like, you set a goal, you achieve it, and then there's just another one after that. And I think that the one's self-worth has to continue to grow and rise in conjunction with whatever the next thing is that they're wanting. And so that's just the challenge. I think I've been in a mindset up until this point of like, just keep growing and learning and getting better, and you will continue to expand your territory. And now I'm like, what if you don't have to change anything about yourself? What if you're enough as you are, what if you're enough? Try that on. And that's it's
what a concept.
To wear. That is an uncomfortable. So yeah, that's the biggest thing.
It sucks that's what so many of us are still learning, but at least we're working on it.
Yeah, that's all we can do.
Oh, I was going to ask, which probably should have been a much earlier on question. It seems like a dumb question, but also should be obvious for this podcast. Do you struggle with anything specific mental health wise? Like for me, it's anxiety and depression. Like, is there something that obviously if you want to say or not say?
I obviously have some self-image issues, like, with my body and things like that. I would say that's probably my biggest challenge in life is putting my energy and time and attention on the 5% of what's not working with me, which for me is generally what I see when I look in the mirror, how I feel about my body and my outward appearance. Is allowing that to be as massive of a distraction and time suck and, as massive as it is and as low vibration as it is, So gratefully I have moments of what I would call being anxious or being depressed, but it's not in the way that I hear from my friends who truly suffer with that. It's not in the debilitating way where they cannot even get out of bed or pick up the phone, or they're on medication, or they're afraid that if they have the panic attack, they're going to have a heart attack and die. I've never experienced it to that extent. But I would say if I had to answer the question, that's probably where it would live for me.
What do you do if you wake up and you are just having a bad day? You're feeling bad about yourself or the world, everything's overwhelming. Like, are there go-to little joy creators or something?
There's few days where I just like give into it and let it be just a crap day and just stay there all day. I'm sure it's happened in the past couple months, but I'm pretty quick to metabolize that stuff and move on. So, I have wonderful teachers and coaches in my life. So there are a lot of cool tools that I use to process through whatever I might be feeling, and process through very quickly, I might add. So I'm grateful for that. Like, I don't expect life to just be like this. I definitely am prepared for this, but the dips and the peaks are so much less dramatic with the tools. So I think like we said, it's about a shift in vibration. So whether that's meditation or a walk or working out or writing or, getting on the phone with someone who I know will walk me through a series of questions and conversations that will get me out, there's so many tools, and really it's just on us to be diligent about doing them, and doing the work to dig through. I think a lot of these emotional and mental health issues that we suffer with are a result of a resistance to what is. I don't want to feel this way, so I have to change it. I don't want that. I don't want the past to have been that way. So I think a lot of it is just accepting that this is the current state of my feelings and examining, like I said, why am I feeling this way? Oh, right. Because we're just circling back to self-worth. Great. Well, that's a boring, broken record. So how can we disprove that? I just have a lot of great people and great tools. And I try not to let an entire day have the joy sucked out of it, if that makes sense. But if it happens, it happens,
Mm-hmm. If you're you're loving this episode of Mentally Together, you might be curious. What goes on behind the scenes? Which parts of the conversation were left on the cutting room floor? Well, let's talk about it over on Patreon. My patrons get to see deleted video clips from every episode and get to be the first to ask questions of each podcast guest. And every month, I host an exclusive live stream for patrons only, where we actually get to hang out and talk to each other. Not that you necessarily needed another Zoom call in your life, but this one is fun, I promise. Oh, and as one of my patrons, you get every episode of the show a day early, on Sundays. You can read all about the different tiers and sign up at patreon.com/Cassidy Quinn. Again, that's Patreon, patreon.com/Cassidy Quinn. Okay, so now I have a few questions from the people of the internet. So the first one is from Daphne. She says, when it comes to self-care, I wonder if Shoshana lives to work or works to live. I love my job, but I've learned that your family, friends, health are worth so much more. I wonder if Shoshana has ever encountered that boundary, and if so, how she handled it.
I would say that I generally have been a live to worker. I definitely have been prioritized my work above pretty much all else. But I also think that I live a pretty well balanced life. Like I play hard, I work hard. I don't go a year without seeing my family, like nothing like that. I like to come home, I be with my friends. So I'd say it's pretty well balanced. And again, as we've said a couple of times during this interview, is like even more so from this year, I've realized like how much there isn't really a race with time. So there's space for even more balance. I think some people may argue with this, but I think that I'm relatively good at self-care and putting myself.
Like that some people might argue.
I think my parents would rather I not work so hard, or they, I think a lot of people would argue that I don't prioritize my rest but I think that I'm pretty good at it.
And the fact that you are acknowledging that it has been something you've struggled with, then that means you've gotten better.
Yes.
I think you're great at it.
Thank you.
Okay, on the theater subject, John wants to know, as I'm working with my high school drama students virtually, what does she think they should focus on while working on their craft at home? Our fall play will be produced virtually.
I mean, I don't think it's any different. I think they have a bigger challenge because they have to connect virtually as opposed to like live and in the flesh, which I got to be honest, to some extent has made people braver and more comfortable because the agita of like being in person is removed. So sometimes I find that people are more brave and apt to take risks when they know that it's just a screen in front of them, That's
how I operate. Like when I was doing live TV, like I didn't have to look at everyone that was watching. I looked at a camera and then assumed people were watching, but I didn't. Like if more people were in person, made me way nervous. If we did the show like on location and people were standing there staring at me, I'm like, why is this? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting. I think it doesn't change. I think the focus should always be connection. The focus should always be listening to their fellow performers. The focus should always be making sure you're being as brave and bold as possible, making sure that you're pushing through any fear or discomfort. And, because they're not all together and not able to sort of hold each other accountable, making sure you're being diligent about your own preparedness on your own.
Ashley wants to know, I think my biggest challenge is staying productive or creative during the times when I honestly just don't want to human at all. How does she handle that?
I mean, I would call it more human. I would say when she says, I don't want to be human, I'm like, so you want to be human? Because we're imperfect. We're not robots. We're not machines. Like, I'm right there with her. Like there've been plenty of days where I'm like, how have I not, it's been 7 months. How have I not written an entire album? But I think that we have to give ourselves grace for how unprecedented these times are and how unprepared and how we're navigating anew every day. And also, as I've heard many people point out, we're also still just like in the grieving process for a life that we didn't know we were losing. You know what I mean? So I think that there's got to be grace for like allowing ourselves to move through this however we can, the best we can. And some days will be productive. And some, I have other artist friends who are like, I'm just coming out of my creative coma. I'm just ready to write. And I'm like, I thought something was wrong with me. Same here. So
I lost it forever. I lost my creativity. It's gone forever.
Yeah, that's how I felt. I was like, I can't write. But I think that, again, grace for where you're at in each day, and also an understanding that like there's no race to run. There's nowhere to get. I think the less we try to resist what is, and the more we just allow it to be and unfold as it will and be where we're at, I think that's the quickest way out of the fog, honestly.
In your defense, not that you need, like you did release an EP. You have released an EP this year,
but
which is crazy.
Last year. I wrote it last year. So,
You've been
I
so
don't
productive.
it, well, thank you. By my standards.
You are enough, Shoshana. That's what we've learned. You are enough. I'll just keep reminding you every day. And then my boyfriend Tucker wanted to know, he is not from the theater world, but he knows how cutthroat it can be and how competitive, and how do you, and that is somewhat specific to the entertainment industry, but also something that people deal with all the time. Like, how do you deal with the cutthroat aspect of everything?
Well, I don't feel it that way because I really learned early on, like, what's meant for you is yours. There really isn't a competition. And I also learned, like, the more you celebrate each other and lift each other up, like, the better the community is, the better your experience is, the better, like, it's all just like, what energy do you want to cultivate? And I just refuse to see it as from a lack perspective. There is enough for everyone. I think that, it's really just a testament to like who has the endurance and the patience to stick around till it's their moment, and it ebbs and flows. People's careers have peaks and valleys, but I don't think of it as competitive. I think of it as like the perfect project is meant for the perfect people. And, that's that.
Okay, last but not least, I have a quick round of questions, like speed round. I haven't come up with a name for it. I would like to have it be called something clever, but, not there yet.
I love it.
The Shoshana speed round. Okay, what is the last time you cried?
That I can vividly remember, like a really big good cry, was probably a week and a half ago.
Ooh, okay. It felt good.
Yeah, it was awesome.
What about the last time you remember just a huge belly laugh?
Actually, yesterday, my director and I were working, and he showed me a YouTube video that just had me rolling. Yeah.
What was the video of?
I can't say.
What is something you're grateful for right now?
Being in New York, having a rainy day.
Ooh, yeah. What's your favorite musical soundtrack to belt it out to?
Oh, probably Sunday in the Park with George.
What is your best habit for your mental health? Something that you do?
I'd say just working the tools to get out of the negative spin in the head.
What about your worst habit? Something you should stop doing, probably.
I mean, like being abusive to myself in my head. You know what I mean?
What's your favorite thing about your brain? Like, oh, my brain actually does this really well. That's cool.
Oh my God. My brain always has ideas of what to do next, like what to create next. And my brain always finds a way to take the random minimal ingredients that I'm given and make something fabulous. Almost like my brain reminds me of like the Top Chef challenge, where they'd be like, it's the gas station challenge. You got the vending machine, like make something amazing. Like I have the ability to take crumbs and make a meal. That's what my brain does.
That's awesome. What's your biggest guilty pleasure?
Ice cream.
Ooh, what kind?
Ben and Jerry's. I'm a fan of like couch potato, and I'm a fan of the new Netflix and chill flavors. Wonderful. I mean chubby hubby, not couch potato. Chubby hubby. Yeah.
What is something that you're really good at that people might not know?
I'm decent at golfing.
Really?
And skiing. Golfing and skiing. I'm pretty good at it. I was raised in Portland. What do you do? Go to Mount Hood every winter.
If you had to get something tattooed on your forehead that you want people to know, what would it say? Let's say everyone has to do it. Like everyone's getting a tattoo on their forehead. It's normal now, and it's just time. What does your billboard say?
It would either say love or it would say who cares. One of the
Ooh.
two.
You can have two if you want. You could do cheek tattoos. You could have one of each. Obviously, hopefully people have learned so much about you. Now they just want to follow everything you do, listen to every song that comes out of your mouth. Where should people follow you?
Well, everything, the website, ShoshanaBean.com, is really comprehensive, but I am the most active on Instagram. All the music is on Spotify and Apple Music and wherever you stream or purchase music. And you can sign up for the mass email list on my website, and that is a very informative source as well. It's the first place I go to inform people of shows coming up or new merch on sale or new music or new video or whatever. I usually I always send out a mass email. So those are your most reliable sources.
Well, thank you so much. It was so lovely to talk to you. I always learn a lot from you.
You take care of yourself.
Thank you. You too. I hope you have a wonderful day. Hope you get to be as productive or not as you want to.
You too, my love. Thank you.
And thank you, wonderful human listening right now, for listening to this episode of Mentally Together. We release new episodes every Monday, so I, Cassidy Quinn, will see you right back here next week. In the meantime, go do something nice for your brain today. Go on a walk, drink some water, that's what I need to go do right now. Listen to some of Shoshana's music and sing and dance along. Whatever will just make your day a little bit better. Might I suggest listening to Shoshana's song, Remember the Day. Every time I hear it, I belt it out. I definitely don't sound as good as she does, but you know what? It makes me feel confident and badass and just great. Also, I would love to hear what you do on those days when you're not feeling like enough. So I posted over on our Instagram. You can follow us at Mentally Together Pod. So go leave a comment and I will share some of your responses on a future episode of the show. Because remember, we are all just trying to keep ourselves mentally together. Mentally Together is produced, hosted, and edited by Cassidy Quinn in collaboration with Koba FM, a podcast network that is all about community, baby.